Thank you, everyone. My name is Heather McCormick. I'm a registered dietitian with Mount Carmel, and I am going to talk today about food labels and tricky marketing, which is kind of fun, I think, in the sense that I'm going to show you some things and I'm probably never thought about it, and that'll be towards the end of the talk today. All right, so food labeling and reading food labels, I feel like they're super important because it tells us what we're actually eating, what we're putting into our bodies, and what we put into our bodies, it does play a huge part on our health, how we feel, energy-wise, alertness, and also can help chronic disease prevention and do the other thing too if we're not choosing healthy foods. And so I'm going to kind of go through nitty-pick and detail-wise the food label and go through everything on the aspects of the food label. So really kind of look at, if you do have a focus, maybe it's you just want to be healthier, or you're trying to improve cholesterol numbers, blood sugar numbers, blood pressure numbers. Maybe you have osteopenia or osteoporosis and you want, to focus on calcium. Kind of use these as a helpful tool to help you be healthier. Okay, I want to start and talk about the difference between a serving and a portion. So, a serving is a specific measured amount of food, and then a portion is the amount of food that you're putting on your plate or in your bowl, in what you're eating. So, for example, ice cream, 2/3 of a cup, that is a serving size when you read that food label. A portion is the amount you choose to put in that bowl of ice cream. All right, so we have pasta here. Maybe 1/2 cup is a serving, and then again, whatever you choose to put in that bowl would be your portion. It might be 4 or 5 servings in there. And then here we have Cheerios, and just the difference between those two. A few years ago, there was a law that was passed that updated our food labels, and this was like the first update in about 20 years. And right now, all of these labels that you're seeing on products now are going to look like the one on the right. There were some important changes on these labels. The first one was really spotlighting the calories. So changing that font, making it bold, making it larger so it kind of stuck out for us to see it. They also changed some of the serving sizes. For example, ice cream serving size used to be 1/2 cup, now it's 2/3 of a cup. They changed some of them because people typically eat more than 1/2 cup. Probably are thinking probably eat more than 2/3 of a cup, but they changed some of those serving sizes just to reflect kind of a little bit more in line with what we would eat. They also, on some products, you might have noticed, like on soup cans, they have per serving and then they have per can. And that is because typically people, when they open up a can of soup, they eat the whole entire can. They don't just have that 1 cup serving. It's also on your 20-ounce bottles of pop or soda. You'll see per serving, per bottle as well. Typically, people drink that whole entire bottle.
So that's the same everyone on their was that part of like the same regulation?
Yeah, that came out early. I mean, that came out a few years earlier prior to that, but that was part of a law that was passed that required 20 restaurants. So if there's a chain of restaurants and they have 20 different locations, they have to provide nutrition information, and they do put the calories like on the menu or on the board when you go into their restaurant. Another difference is on the left, there's just sugar, and knowing that, okay, that sugar that was on our old food label was it was actually a total of added sugar and natural sugar. From a health perspective, natural sugar is fine. Like, if you have a piece of fruit, totally fine. That's not going to impact our health in a bad way. But the added sugar, that is not good for us in the sense it doesn't really provide us much nutritional value other than calories, extra calories. So on the new food label, they have total sugar, and then underneath it is added sugar. So the total is still your added and natural together, but just underneath it, it's saying, well, out of that total sugar, in this example, there's 10 grams of added sugar out of that 12. So there's 2 grams of natural sugar in this example here, in this made-up food label. And then they adjusted some of the nutrients at the bottom. So we used to have vitamin A, C, calcium, and iron, and they changed it to vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. They took off the vitamin A and vitamin C because most people, that's not a nutritional concern. So they replaced it with vitamin D and potassium because a lot of people don't get enough of those two. So they felt like making that swap could help people if they wanted to focus on those two, they would know. Okay, so always start at the top on a food label. So always look serving size, and everything underneath it is going to reflect what that serving size is. So this is a can of soup, New England clam chowder. Serving size is 1 cup. So the 130 calories is based on that 1 cup. I'm going to explain why that's important. Did you guys ever notice that Cheerios, when you look at different Cheerios, they have different serving sizes? They do. So the one on the right, the one on the left is your regular Cheerios, and the one on the right is your Honey Nut Cheerios. Regular Cheerios, the serving size is 1.5 cups. The Honey Nut is 1 cup. But if you just looked at the calories, they're the same amount of calories. So you really have to always look at that serving size, because if you just look at the calories, you're like, well, I'm just going to have the Honey Nut Cheerios because the same amount of calories, right? But the serving size is different. No, like there's, yeah, no, right? All right, so the next thing on, like, what underneath the calories, there are different fats on there, on that label. So it's important to know, like, what are the healthy fats, what are the unhealthy fats. So your healthy or good or unsaturated fats are your olives and olive oil and canola oil, peanut oil, any nut butter, so peanut butter, almond butter, good stuff. Seeds like pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, all good for you, good stuff. Avocados, fatty fish like salmon, trout, herring, mackerel, and tuna. Margarine and mayonnaise are mostly made up of unsaturated fat, and these are commercial margarines and mayonnaise. The other side, the saturated fat, kind of think of it as typically it's found in animal products. So your meats, high fat like dairy products, those are typically where you're going to find your saturated fats. It's also in coconut oil, palm kernel oil, palm oil, and then desserts that are made with lard, butter, or tropical oils too. Okay, so on a label, this is where you're going to see the saturated fat. And we know that high intakes of saturated fat, and there are years of research to show this, that they know, like, we know that if you're eating a lot of saturated fat, it can play a huge impact, a negative impact on our LDL cholesterol. So recommendations, if you don't have heart disease, if you don't have high cholesterol, 23 grams or like under 23 grams for if you're eating around 2,000 calories a day. So that could be a number to kind of focus on. If you do have high cholesterol, if you have a history, heart history, heart attack, stroke, bypass, stents, anything like that, it's 13 grams per day for 2,000 calories. And that's about 6% of the total calories if you were to calculate that. Trans fats, if you guys know that artificial trans fats are not in our food supply anymore. So that was a huge thing. They were like worse than saturated fat. I mean, they were terrible. And from a heart health perspective. And by law, companies can't use artificial trans fats. It's a partially hydrogenated oil. It's not in our food supply anymore. So that number is going to say 0 most of the time. It's naturally in meat, but most labels are just going to say 0, even though it's still on the food label. Cholesterol. Cholesterol doesn't impact our blood cholesterol as much as we once thought it did. Saturated fat affects it the most. There are still recommendations from the American Heart Association to keep it under 300 milligrams, but if you have heart disease or high cholesterol, to keep it under 200 milligrams per day. All right, so what is missing from a food label, which is not required, are those healthy unsaturated fats. You can figure that out by doing some simple math. All you would do is take that total minus your saturated fat, and whatever's left over is a healthy fat. It's just not listed. Some companies will choose to put that on a label, but it's not a required item to put on a label. Look out everywhere for some hidden bad fat. So these Jif chewy granola bars, and I'll read this because I don't think you guys can see this in the back, but this says 3 grams of saturated fat per 1 bar, and I underlined palm kernel oil is an ingredient. So that's one of your tropical oils that's saturated fat, and so that is helping contribute to that 3 grams on that in this bar here. Do you have any questions about the cholesterol, saturated fat, anything like that? Okay. All right. I'm going to talk about salt and sodium. But this is a question I get every now and then. Which is the best type of salt to use? I'm going to ask you guys if you... None of it? Okay. Pink? Okay. Oh, iodine. Yep. Okay.
I think it's either controlled salt or unclean food.
Uh-huh.
To a restaurant because it tastes real good.
You guys are like thinking like outside of what I even wanted you to do. You're good. Okay. Well, this is my answer, but you're right. You get iodine in your the table salt that is if you buy it if it says with iodine in it, and if you are cooking at home and you're actually adding it yourself versus somebody else, like that's putting a lot more than probably what you would add to your food. So, but just so you know, sodium-wise, all salt is 40% sodium, 60% chloride. So from a sodium perspective, it doesn't really matter which type of salt that you use. Okay, so too much salt or sodium is linked to high blood pressure, which increases the risk for heart attack, stroke, heart failure, can damage the heart, aorta, kidneys without even increasing blood pressure. And it's not good for the bones too, because it causes your body to, you lose calcium that way with high sodium intake. So I put in an image of a garden hose there. So when you have high blood pressure, kind of think of it as, you turn your hose on, and it looked like that first picture there, kind of just would fall out of the hose. When your blood pressure is high, kind of you put your finger at the end of that hose, you're going to have an increased pressure. And if you're watering your flowers, and you can damage your plants, with that force of water. It's the same thing in your body too. When you have high blood pressure, it can damage wherever blood is flowing. It can damage capillaries in your eyes. It can damage your kidneys, your heart. And so kind of think of that way, and that pressure does affect all over in your body. Recommendations for sodium is to keep it under 2,300 milligrams per day. We recommend at Mount Carmel, and the heart patients I work with, kind of across the board, we recommend 2,000 milligrams per day. Teaspoon is around 2,300 milligrams.
That's if you know you're putting in some stuff you may not.
Yes, exactly. If you were to take it out of all your food, it would be 2,300. But yeah, you're right. Most of it we actually get from food that's already been added to it. It's not necessarily us that's doing it. And this is just an example of a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and how easily it can add up. So you just have general cereal with skim milk, very low in sodium. But lunch, think, okay, we're going to have a soup. It doesn't really matter what type of soup. A cup of it, and then you have a turkey sandwich. And that meat, that processed meat, and that soup, adding it together, it can contribute to a lot of sodium. And then dinner, having one slice of pizza and a salad with some salad dressing, that's got sodium in it too. And so how easily, especially that lunch meal, you think, well, I'm just having soup and a sandwich. Not, it could be healthy calorie-wise, but sodium-wise could be pretty high. We get most of it from processed foods and eating out, about 70%. It's not so much the salt shaker, actually, when we look at how people are getting their sodium intakes across the board. So I actually tell people, read the labels and know what you're eating, what you're buying. But if you're cooking and you want to add a little bit of salt to your food, that's totally fine. That's going to help. It's going to be a lot less than that packaged food. Okay, so 2 examples here. I got a Progresso vegetable Italiano soup, and sodium, it says 650 per cup milligrams. Again, remember 2,300 is what recommendations are to stay under. And then on the right is an Amy's brand soup. That line of soups you can get at any grocery store. There's some reduced sodium options. And so for 1 cup, this has 530 milligrams of sodium in it. And if you would have the whole can, it's 880. Any questions about the sodium?
I'm curious to go home and look at another can of soup. Those
Yeah.
soups I would check. They got the word vegetable in it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Lasagna soup or something.
Yeah.
So I would think those would be more health conscious, but
Yeah.
they probably,
Yeah.
because there's other soups that even have higher amounts of sodium.
Yeah.
And then
Right. I'm going to talk about fiber, because that's another important key thing on a food label. So super important for us to get fiber. Most Americans, the average intake's around 15 grams per day. I'm just listing here all the health benefits for fiber. So helps with blood sugars, helps with cholesterol, helps with weight management because it can help fill you up, helps with gut health. There's just so many advantages to fiber. We get fiber from fruits, vegetables, beans, whole grains, seeds, and nuts. And we should aim for about 25 grams per day. And men, more 30, but women, more 25 grams per day. And this is where you're going to see it on the label. This kind maple pumpkin seed with sea salt bar has 2 grams of fiber per 1 bar. This product here is a Fiber One Chewy granola bar. And I just bring this up because a lot of products out there will put what's called isolated fiber in our foods to boost the fiber in their products. From a health perspective, you will not get all those health benefits I had on that slide about the cholesterol, blood sugar, gut health, and all that from isolated fiber. It's best to get it from fruits and vegetables, whole grains, seeds, nuts, and beans. So the very first ingredient is chicory root extract. That is giving this bar extra fiber, and it's called an isolated fiber. So just for your information, these products, they're fine. They just aren't going to give you all those great health benefits that fiber can give you. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Is it chicory root? Is it chicory root? I don't know if it does. Somebody want to Google it? I was like, chicory coffee.
I wonder if it has that.
I don't know. I have to look it up. Oh. Okay. Okay. It's an isolated. If that's the case, I don't actually know. So I would have to look it up. But if that's the case, it would be an isolated. If it's like chicory root fiber, it's an isolated fiber. Okay. So this bar has 9 grams of fiber in it, which is a lot. All right. Added sugar. And most people eat too much of it because it's in our foods, just like sodium. In America, our food supply is loaded with salt and added sugar. And too much added sugar can give us a lot of extra calories. Too much of it can increase triglyceride levels and affect our HDL. So if you're decreasing that, you should see improvements in those numbers. So these are the recommendations here from the American Heart Association, men and women. So men is 9 teaspoons per day and women 6 to stay under for the day. So for men, it's equivalent about 36 grams. Grams are on the label. So every teaspoon is 4 grams. And then for women, it's about 24, 25 grams. So this is where you're going to see it on a label. Again, it's under that total sugar line. I want to give you an example. This is an ingredient list from a Nutri-Grain bar. And all you just need to see is red. Okay, all the red is sugar, different versions of sugar. So we got sugar, dextrose, fructose, invert sugar again, corn syrup, and sugar. And there's actually 12 grams of added sugar in one Nutri-Grain bar. So there's a lot of sugar in the Nutri-Grain bar. And then here, this is kefir. Has anyone had kefir before? I love it. I really like it. It's like a liquid yogurt. If you don't like yogurt, you're probably not going to like it. But if you like yogurt, I think you like it. It's tangy. Yeah, it's good for your gut too. But Lifeway has a plain and a strawberry. I actually drink the strawberry, but just so you know, there's added sugar. So the plain, this says 0 grams of added sugar, and then the strawberry has 8 grams of added sugar per cup. Okay, so here are some other items on a food label. So calcium, super important for our bone health. That's something you can look for. Aim for about 1,000 milligrams per day. And if you're a woman over 50, it's about 1,200 milligrams per day. And 50 is usually the cutoff because of menopause. That's why the recommendations are higher at 50 because the decrease in estrogen levels increase the risk for osteopenia and osteoporosis. So we just need a little bit more calcium. Vitamin D, super important to absorb calcium. So important for our bones, but also if you've ever had low vitamin D intakes, you might not feel so great. So it's super important, try to keep those levels good. But recommendations, 15 micrograms or 20 micrograms if you're over 70. Iron prevents anemia. So there's some recommendations here, 8 milligrams per day. This is men and women. But if you're a woman between the ages of 19 and 50, it's higher because of every month having a period, you need to have more iron when you have blood loss. If you're pregnant, it's even a little bit more higher too. And then potassium, it's important for blood pressure. 4,700 milligrams per day is what's recommended for potassium. All right, you can use this for a couple things. I feel like at the grocery store, if you're trying to find some better products, there's something called the 5-20 rule. It might be a dietitian thing that we call it the 5-20 rule. So 5% or lower means that it's low in that particular nutrient. If it's 20 or higher, it's high. So you can use that concept when you look at sodium, just kind of quick glance, like, oh, is this high in sodium? You can look at that % daily value. This baked bean product has 22% daily value in one serving, so a half a cup. And then for added sugar, as 25 in it. So based on that, this would be high in sodium and high in added sugar. Any questions about kind of the last part or anything you've thought of?
Just the overall, something like a lot of these store-bought a lot of extra things in it.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be, I guess, the goal is to stay away from limit things in a box, in cans?
It's always better. It's always better. Like if you can make things at home, because you're going to use less ingredients, whole ingredients, there's going to be ingredients that you know that you're putting in food and you know what they are versus buying things from a box. Now, bars vary. Nutri-Grain bar, I picked on Nutri-Grain bar. They have a lot of sugar and they have a huge, that list is very long. And that's a very great observation. I look at ingredients, the shorter, the simpler lists on those ingredients are always going to be better. Yeah. I don't buy Nutri-Grain bars. Even though they're whole grain and they advertise that, and they're just loaded with added sugar. Correct. They call it hyperpalatable. Yeah, when I was reading like some research, it's like they call it hyper palatable because they add in some of those ingredients can change like the normal texture, make them softer, or make them crispier, and make them sweeter or saltier. Like they're adding things to them to please people.
All the foods that are advertised to show that they're reducing calories, being supplemented, still being palatable,
Probably,
to then still be
yeah,
enjoyable. So
yeah.
the comparison of the
It might not be. Yeah.
I did want to ask about isolated fiber.
Yeah.
Is there a guidance that you have fiber?
Most foods have both. There are, if you're looking for more soluble fiber, beans and oats are higher in soluble fiber, and then insoluble fiber is going to be like in bran and some wheat products. But most like fruits and vegetables, like they have a little bit of both. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So soluble is great for helping lower cholesterol. The insoluble is great for keeping you regular. So unfortunately, the food label doesn't tell you, it's not required to tell us like what type of fiber it is. I think like the most important thing is just trying to aim for the 25 grams of fiber, but a wide variety of different foods to try to get that, to get, because you'll hit both of those types of fiber. So yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go into like the marketing stuff on packages. Okay. So this ad came out a while ago. It's Oscar Mayer all natural chicken or turkey. I'm sorry. It's turkey. Okay. So their ad says some things are full of hormones, we're not. So just so you know, all animals have hormones in them, right? Naturally. They're not, by law, they cannot add hormones to these products, like pork, chicken, or turkey. That's why it says in small print, federal regulations prohibit the use of hormones in poultry. Beef is different, but you cannot do that. So if you didn't know that or you didn't read the small fine print, this is trying to get the person to buy this product. Correct. They can't use hormones either. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yes. Okay. These are Belvitas breakfast biscuits, and they advertise that's going to give you 4 hours of energy. It's not based on any research at all. So there's no way that they can guarantee that you're getting 4 hours of energy or sustainable energy. They're fine to have. The picture that they have is actually a better breakfast because you get a grain, you get a dairy, and a fruit. That would be a more complete breakfast. But I feel like it's not correct marketing to tell you that you're going to feel like you're going to have energy for 4 hours. All right, so this is like the green juices are pretty popular. Okay, if you drink them, always look at your ingredients, and they're pricey. Like this one's like $5, $6. Like it's super expensive. Most green juices have more apple juice than anything else. These are the ingredients. First ingredient is apple juice, and ingredients are listed by weight. So first ingredient always has the most. Second, yeah, you see it, yeah. So the kale juice is down there, and then the spirulina, which is causing it to be green, the like the powder. But it's mostly apple juice. Like, I mean, the point is you're paying for apple juice, expensive apple juice that's got a little bit of green, some other stuff in it. Yeah. Okay, so this is a Thomas's Plain made with whole grain bagel. So this actually has more white flour than whole wheat flour, and how you can tell, just look at that ingredient list. The first ingredient is enriched wheat flour. If it says enriched, it is a refined grain. That's what it is. The actual whole wheat is it's after water in there. So it is made with some, but if you're looking for a whole grain bagel, they make, you got to look for that first ingredient, should say whole wheat flour. So the natural concept catches a lot of people's attention, and including, like, this is what they have on their products, like no artificial colors, flavors, cholesterol, partially hydrogenated oils, or high fructose corn syrup. And they're advertised as being sweet potato thins. Well, look at if you guys can see the ingredients in the back. So we got potato flour, that's white potato flour, and then cornstarch is the second ingredient, and then it's sweet potato. So they're mostly your regular potato. Then cornstarch, probably not a whole lot of cornstarch in there. And there's probably not a lot of the sweet potato actually in there. So I think it's false. I think that's really tricking somebody because they think that they're getting like mostly sweet potato, right? Okay. All right, so this one is a cauliflower crust. It says 1/3 of our classic crust is made with cauliflower on the label. And then in fine print, it says 1 serving does not provide a significant amount of the USDA daily recommendations for vegetables. So that's another, I feel like that's tricking you thinking, oh, I'm going to have some cauliflower, and well, it's really not a significant amount that's actually in there. All right, these are grain-free chips. So they say instead of using typical grains like corn or rice, our grain-free paleo tortilla chips are made with root vegetables and seeds. So if you look at the ingredients, the root vegetable is cassava. It's actually very popular in Mexico. It's like potato, which is another root vegetable. So it's essentially like you're eating potato chips. And then these are double chocolate muffins made with zucchini and carrots. This one's tricky because, again, like the ingredient lists are in order of weight. So zucchini and carrots are going to be first because they're heavy, they're full of water, but they also have a lot of sugar and chocolate in them. So just keep that in mind. So if you want to know how you're doing nutrition-wise, my suggestion is try some food tracking just for a few days. And you can see like what's your sodium intake, what's your fiber intake, how you doing calorie-wise. I think it can be very helpful. And if you do track, make sure you're tracking everything. So because I have this picture here of what someone might track, and I'm thinking of like MyFitnessPal, some of those popular like apps that you can track, but what they forgot to add, and they didn't add, and some of those little things can really change what your day looks like. So they had coffee, eggs, bacon, and peppers for breakfast, but they didn't track the tablespoon of butter that they used for the cooking. And then for lunch, had a Greek chicken salad with an apple and peanut butter, but then forgot the salad dressing and the extra peanut butter that they licked on the spoon when they for putting on their apple. And then dinner had grass-fed steak, veggies, potatoes, berries, and chocolate, but then forgot to put the extra dollop of sour cream and the extra chocolate bar that they actually had. And so the calorie difference is 1,400 to almost 2,000, just with those little additions. Has anyone done food trekking? Oh, everybody? Almost everybody? Good. Yeah. So I do recommend MyFitnessPal and then another one called Chronometer. It's not as popular, but I actually like it a little bit better because the library of food is pulled from national databases. So it's valid information, like it's valid nutrition information. They also track a lot more nutrients, including added sugar, which MyFitnessPal doesn't. And in the free version, you can scan a barcode on a product. The free version of MyFitnessPal, you can't do it anymore. You used to be able to, but they took that nice feature away. You have to pay for it.